more people have been. I mean, I think that he is an example of his prosecution. The charges against him are one of the biggest attacks on freedom of the press that we've seen and freedom of speech.
And yeah, I think sometimes you need somebody to put the hammer down. I think Obama said this, and just say, I'm sorry, you can't expose our secret agents. And we have to think of our security first. Yeah. I mean, yes, I'm sure the government does some gnarly things, but I don't like this. I don't like a guy who pretends that he's the patriot when it's the spies out there who are protecting this country, not Julian Assange.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Leftist Losers Show, where we point out all of the losers of the left. And this afternoon's loser is Bill Maher. Now, I've got a clip for you guys that's been floating around X for the last couple of days. And it's just another one of those situations where Bill Maher says something really goofy and makes he just has a really bad take on the situation. And it comes down to the guy only reads headlines, doesn't pay attention, or is just misinformed from his producers for his political shows. And so he has bad takes because he comes off extremely ignorant because he is ignorant, because he doesn't have all the information available. And on top of that, he tends to bring on guests who are just extremely well read. They pay attention. They understand the context around the situations of the questions he's talking about. And they know what's going on. And so when he asks a question and asks for their take, and their takes are very well read into the context and come off level-headed and like they can critically think, unlike him. And then he gives his take, and it's just absolute clown world ignorance because he doesn't have any idea what's going on. And so it just makes him look like a fool. And then they blow up all over X. And I don't know if he's doing it on purpose, again, but I think if you look back to his history, this is pretty atypical Bill Maher. I think the guy just doesn't put that much effort into researching the topics that he asks about. He just wants to run a political show. And so he has guests on who know what's going on, and so they make him look foolish. So anyways, in this clip, he asks about Julian Assange and the legacy of him moving forward, and what he wants to know the opinion of the guests about whether or not Julian Assange will be accepted back into society or will be shunned and looked at as a traitor. And I'm going to go ahead and let this play now so you guys can form your own opinion.
Now that WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, oh, good, let's get to this. What?
Oh, it's good.
Me too. Has pled guilty to espionage and secured his freedom. I didn't see this coming, by the way. I didn't think he'd ever get out. What will his legacy be? Yes.
Time served. Time served. He served 6 years, and that's what he's getting.
No, but they're talking about his legacy, and that's what I want to know. Is he a heroic crusader exposing government lies, or he is a reckless traitor who was endangering our freedom?
Yeah, I mean, it depends who you ask. I think that the more people have been, I think that he is an example of his prosecution. The charges against him are one of the biggest attacks on freedom of the press that we've seen and freedom of speech. So.
Yeah, exactly, and extremely well put from Tulsi Gabbard, as usual. She's been fantastic, and I think her leaving the Democratic Party was a good choice on her part. I mean, she critically thinks way too much to be on a party that revolves around a cult following. But anyways, enough of that. This guy's not a traitor. He literally was given classified information and went through the proper channels to make sure that a lot of it was censored so that it wouldn't put most of the agents involved in jeopardy, because a lot of them were still frontline agents out there, doing spycraft and stuff. And he was demonized for it because it made the Obama admin and a lot of the big establishment players like the Clintons look really bad because they were heavily involved, specifically Hillary Clinton being in the Department of Homeland Security. And it is what it is, man. I mean, you got a guy who is supposed to be a journalist, and the whole point of journalism is to get information out to the public so we can form our own opinions and question authority, because we need to be able to keep them in account, right? They're supposed to be for the people. And the only way that we can make sure that they are still for the people is to understand fully what they are doing and what they're capable of, and make sure that we keep them in check, which clearly we've been failing to do in the United States of America for a very long time. And that's why these people get so angry and they do what they did to Julian Assange when the information does come out. They basically exile him from society and put him in somewhere, basically has to go into hiding in the UK for a very long time. I think Chris Matthews said 6 years. 6 years this guy had to go into hiding. But anyways, let's continue on.
Wow, I thought you would go the other way.
No, not at all.
I think Ellsberg looks good right now.
What?
Daniel Ellsberg looks very good right now, and what he did. And the Pentagon Papers was about how the Kennedy administration and Johnson administration, not Nixon, what they did to lie about the war.
Well, I don't know all the particulars. I mean, you'd have to really spend months and months going through the amount of stuff he put out. But in general, I think the world's full of bad people. Like I was saying to Ray, the world's full of bad people. And yeah, I think sometimes you need somebody to put the hammer down. I think Obama said this, and just say, I'm sorry, you can't expose our secret agents. And we have to think of our security first. Yeah. I mean, yes, I'm sure the government does some gnarly things, but I don't like this. I don't like a guy who pretends that he's the patriot when it's the spies out there who are protecting this country, not Julian Assange.
God, I cannot stand this argument, right? So Bill Maher's argument is essentially, well, the government does really horrible things because it needs to do really horrible things, especially to Americans, if we're going to protect Americans. It's such a bullshit argument, man. It is such a bullshit argument. Sure, I can understand in the context of like World War II, and they talk about all-out war, right? And it was the only way to combat the Nazis and the Empire of Japan was to fully commit. And even if you had to do some pretty messed up things like bombing civilian centers, which were, critical in the industry of those militaries, that's what you had to do to win the war. And I can understand when it's all-out war, sure. But you've got so much garbage going on with the U.S. government with regards to like the Patriot Act and just the invasion of privacy and the constant stripping of rights that these politicians are pushing for and these three-letter agencies are pushing for because it gives them more power and more ability to constantly better themselves in their own lives. And it's just disgusting. And anytime anyone questions that or provides information that shows that is happening, they are demonized in the media and made out to be the enemy, or as Bill Maher puts it, the traitor. And I can understand not wanting to put the agents specifically in harm's way that he's referring to, who might be out there doing things for, good reasons, actually trying to, further the American dream or the American, interests around the world. I can understand that, right? But using that argument to justify all of the garbage that the government pulls is a joke. And it makes people like Bill Maher look like a clown, because I think most of the people in this country at this point are sick and tired of that argument and are sick and tired of being stomped on by a boot and the person wielding, with the boot on saying, well, you need to just take it because if you don't, then the bigger guy over there is going to beat you up. And it's like, no, okay, that's not how this works, right? We shouldn't have to get beat up in the first place. That's supposed to be the whole point of the government protecting the people, right? So we don't have to get our rights taken away. We don't have to get abused by these other societies and groups of people who wish to do us harm and wish to, subjugate us, essentially. Which now it almost seems like our own government is looking to. So let's see what else Bill Maher has to say after that.
Because there are people who want to destroy this country.
That's true.
And there are people who are plotting to get nuclear weapons and all the rest of it. And this guy is not the one who made sure that we have not really been attacked since 9/11.
I go to Vietnam every year to teach for a couple weeks, and I got to tell you, the 5 o'clock Follies Hotel, the Rex Hotel, where they used to do the 5 o'clock briefing every afternoon about how many body count, how many we killed. It's all BS. That stuff was never true.
What stuff was never true?
The Vietnam War and the numbers of people we were killing and the way we were winning the war. And we're going to get there sooner or later because we're killing them all. No, it wasn't true.
Yeah.
But that's different. We attack them. This guy, he is exposing people who are protecting us. We are the ones who have been attacked.
Okay, I agree.
But what he exposed really is how our own government was violating our own civil liberties and trying to cover up things that were very embarrassing
it's some
to
of
our
both.
government. And I think that's the essence of the responsibility of a free press and why it's so important for our democracy.
Okay.
Yeah, and she just made him look like a fool because it's exactly right. It's exactly the point of the media and of so-called journalists, right? That's why we always say so-called journalists nowadays, because a lot of these people that are in the profession of journalism don't actually practice real journalism. They are just narrative propaganda pushers who will take a check from whoever was willing to provide a check and then spout whatever information that check giver wants spread. And it's not about, the truth anymore, or at least for a lot of people it isn't. And Julian Assange was thankfully one of the few people who, at least as far as we can tell based on his actions, was more focused on finding out the truth and providing the truth to the people of the world than anything else. And he just served 6 years in exile and in hiding for doing so. And like she said, he embodies the essence of journalism in doing that. And it is extremely sad to see someone like him get taken down just simply for providing the truth to the people and doing what a journalist is supposed to do. That's question authority, ask questions, and provide the information that gets us as close as possible to the truth. Yeah, real quick, I want to go back and revisit a clip from earlier in this video, just where Bill Maher gets schooled on the topic of the draft. And let's just go ahead and watch this.
Gabbard, and the first question is to you. Tulsi, should women be required to register for the military draft? I saw this. This is so interesting. The Democrats, so great at politics. I don't know why they brought it up now. I mean, men, I almost forgot this. Men do still have to register for the draft. Nobody gets...
Well, this is actually something that they also just changed in the legislation through the National Defense Authorization Act just a few weeks ago, is now men don't have to register because they're automatically registering them as soon as they turn 18.
Okay.
So you don't have to actually, you don't get to fill out a card or anything anymore.
But I remember I was about to be registered. I just turned 17 in 1973 when they were still drafting for Vietnam, and it was like that was the year. It was like, oh, we're not. Oh, it's like, oh boy, did I luck out on that one. But they still registered you. Now the Democrats in an election year have brought this up for I don't know what reason, saying now we want women to register because there's 250,000 women in the military right now, and if something was so catastrophic that we did have to draft people, why shouldn't women go? But why bring it up in an election year are my two questions.
Well, first of all, we shouldn't have a draft.
At all?
No, I don't think so.
What if it's an emergency?
Well, the fact that they're bringing this up now, to me, points to the fact that the only reason we would need a draft is because our warmongering politicians are starting wars that they know the American people aren't going to support. When you look...
Yeah, and that's where I'm going to end this clip here. They just go on to talk about the nuances of the draft. Again, I'll post the full video in the description below if you guys want to watch the whole thing from Bill Maher. Yeah, she makes an excellent point, and I think that's exactly what they're doing. I don't think they would ever have brought this forward in an election year if it wasn't for something they deem in the background to be extremely important, and I think a lot of it has to do with the war in Ukraine, the war in Israel, China, seemingly preparing to invade Taiwan almost every year, or at least they scream about it every year. Or you could look at the fact that Saudi Arabia just got rid of the petrodollar. The 50-year deal to, make the dollar the only currency that Saudi Arabia would trade for oil, it expired about a month ago, and they did not re-up it, which means the petrodollar is effectively dead. And nobody's talking about it because I think that's probably the biggest existential threat to the United States. And Thucydides' trap says that any economic power that looks to overthrow the leading economic power in the world almost always leads to war. I think it's like 75% of the time it has happened, or however many times in history it's happened. And I think that's what they're gearing up for. I think you look at all the conflict around the world, you look at BRICS creating a gold-backed currency to counter the US dollar as the petrodollar. You look at the fact that the petrodollar deal wasn't extended. You look at the fact that they just won't give up on Ukraine and seem to just keep pushing us closer and closer to nuclear war with Russia, or at least both sides keep threatening those things. You look at the war in the Middle East with Israel, and that just constantly escalating. You look at China growing as the world's economic power, looking to overthrow us off the top pedestal for that. And I think they're gearing up for war. I think that makes perfect sense for that. And I think the establishment's hoping that, if push comes to shove, they can just, stick the entire generation straight into the meat grinder. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's, another big reason why they allow all these illegal immigrants into the country is they need bodies for the meat grinder. And as messed up as that is, it's just, a lot of the evidence points towards that. You look at the birth rates declining in the U.S., and there's just a lot of things that make this whole thing about the draft really sketchy. And anything that's controversial like this being pushed in election year should make you question what's going on, because that it's usually not good for polling. And you know what? Or maybe it's just because Biden's looking like he's going to drop out, and they figured it wouldn't have mattered. But who knows? But that's where I'm going to leave it for you guys today. Again, this video, the full Bill Maher video, will be available in the description. There'll be a link down there if you guys want to check the whole thing out. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It was just a short one today. If you guys would please leave your comments down below on what you guys think about this whole situation, and please like and subscribe. It would really help me out and get me pushed in the YouTube algorithm, and I'm going to continue to put out my opinion and enjoy listening to the opinions of other people on YouTube and you guys as well. And I hope you guys have a fantastic day.